The 1970s put radio executives in an impossible position. Punk was attacking everything sacred, disco was getting steamy, and rock was more political than ever. Some songs were banned for being too explicit, others for being anti-establishment, and a few for reasons that seem ridiculous today. These tracks sparked outrage and proved that censorship often backfired spectacularly. Today, we're counting down the 15 most controversial banned rock songs from the 70s. Number 15, God Save the Queen, by Sex Pistols.
God save the Queen! She ain't no human being.
When the Sex Pistols released God Save the Queen in May 1977, they timed it perfectly to coincide with Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee celebrations. The timing wasn't coincidental. It was a calculated provocation that worked exactly as intended. The song's anti-monarchy stance and its description of the royal family as a fascist regime sent shockwaves through British society. The BBC immediately banned the song from radio and television, but that only fueled its popularity. Independent record stores couldn't keep it in stock, and pirate radio stations played it constantly. The irony was delicious. While official charts showed Rod Stewart's I Don't Want to Talk About It at number 1, many believe God Save the Queen was the real chart topper, with sales figures mysteriously suppressed. The controversy reached fever pitch when the Sex Pistols attempted to perform the song on a boat floating down the Thames during Jubilee week. Police boats surrounded them, arrests were made, and the incident became front-page news across Britain. The band had achieved something remarkable. They'd made punk rock a genuine threat to the establishment, not just a musical movement. Number 14, Brown Sugar, by the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones had always pushed boundaries, but Brown Sugar from 1971 pushed further than many radio programmers were comfortable with. The song's explicit references to slavery, violence, and sexual exploitation made it one of the most controversial number 1 hits of the decade. Many American radio stations banned it outright, while others played heavily edited versions. What made the controversy particularly complex was the song's musical brilliance. Keith Richards' iconic opening riff and the band's raw energy made it undeniably powerful. Critics and fans were split between those who saw it as a brilliant piece of rock and roll and those who found its content deeply offensive. The song's success despite radio bans proved that word of mouth and record sales could overcome broadcast censorship. The band members themselves seemed surprised by the intensity of the reaction. Mick Jagger later acknowledged that the song's lyrics were problematic, but at the time, the Stones were riding high on their reputation as rock's most dangerous band. The controversy only enhanced their outlaw image and cemented their status as the rebels of rock and roll. Number 13, Lola, by the Kinks.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho where you drink champagne.
Ray Davies thought he was being clever when he wrote Lola in 1970, crafting a story about gender identity and sexual confusion that was decades ahead of its time. The song's narrative about a young man's encounter with someone who walked like a woman and talked like a man was groundbreaking in its openness about transgender issues. But that's not why it was banned.
Why she walk like a woman but talk like a man, oh my lord.
The BBC's objection was far more mundane. The original recording mentioned Coca-Cola by name, which violated their policy against product placement. This forced Davies to make a frantic 6,000-mile round trip from New York to London to re-record that single line, changing it to Cherry Cola for the radio version. The absurdity of interrupting an American tour for one word highlighted just how rigid broadcasting standards could be. Despite the hassle, Lola became one of the Kinks' biggest international hits, reaching number 2 in the UK and number 9 in America. The song's progressive message about accepting people regardless of their gender presentation was largely lost in the controversy over a soft drink reference. but it paved the way for more open discussions about identity in popular music. Number 12. Money by Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's Money, from 1973's The Dark Side of the Moon, seemed like an unlikely candidate for censorship. After all, it was an instrumental, heavy, progressive rock track that was more about artistic expression than rebellion. But radio censors fixated on a single word in Roger Waters' lyrics that they deemed inappropriate for broadcast.
Get back.
The offending word was bullshit, which appeared in the line about corporate manipulation and greed. Even though the song's anti-materialist message was actually quite moral, that one profanity was enough to get it banned from many radio stations. The irony wasn't lost on the band. A song criticizing the corrupting influence of money was being censored by commercial radio stations worried about losing advertising revenue.
Don't take a slice of mine.
The censorship backfired spectacularly. Money became one of Pink Floyd's most recognizable songs. Its distinctive cash register sound effects and David Gilmour's guitar solo making it a classic rock staple. The radio edit that bleeped out the offensive word became almost comical, with the obvious censorship actually drawing more attention to the very lyric they were trying to hide. Number 11. Je t'aime, moi non plus, by Jane Birkin and Serge Gainsbourg. When Jane Birkin and Serge Gainsbourg's breathless duet was re-released in 1974, it reignited the controversy that had first surrounded it in 1969. The song's explicit vocal performance, featuring what sounded like genuine intimate moments between the two performers, was unlike anything that had appeared on mainstream radio. The BBC banned it immediately, calling it indecent and unsuitable for broadcast. Religious groups organized boycotts, and several countries prohibited its sale entirely. The irony was that Gainsbourg later revealed the sounds were completely theatrical. He directed Birkin to create the vocals without any actual physical intimacy, making it perhaps the most convincing acting performance in popular music. The ban only increased public curiosity, and the song became a massive underground hit across Europe and eventually America. Record stores reported customers asking for that banned French song, and its success helped establish the idea that controversy could be a powerful marketing tool. The song proved that sometimes the most effective censorship was no censorship at all. Number 10. Love to Love You Baby by Donna Summer. Donna Summer's breakthrough hit from 1975 contained what censors counted as 22 simulated orgasms in its 17-minute album version. The song's extended vocals and suggestive breathing made it the most explicitly sexual track to receive mainstream radio play up to that point. Even the radio edit, shortened to under 4 minutes, was too much for many stations. Religious groups organized protests outside record stores, and several radio stations received bomb threats for playing the song. Summer herself seemed genuinely surprised by the intensity of the reaction, later explaining that she'd simply been alone in the studio, lost in the music. Producer Giorgio Moroder had encouraged her to be as expressive as possible, but neither had anticipated the cultural firestorm that would follow. The controversy helped establish disco as a genuinely subversive force in popular culture, not just a dance trend. Love to Love You Baby proved that disco could be dangerous, sexual, and revolutionary. The song's success, despite widespread bans, helped launch Summer's career and showed that audiences were ready for more adult themes in popular music, whether radio stations approved or not. Number 9. Anarchy in the UK by Sex Pistols. Even before God Save the Queen, the Sex Pistols had announced themselves as a major threat to social order with Anarchy in the UK. Released in November 1976, the song's title alone was enough to guarantee controversy. But its lyrics about destroying the established order made it genuinely frightening to many adults. The BBC banned it within days of release, and major record store chains refused to stock it. EMI Records, who had signed the band, began to have second thoughts as protests mounted and shareholders complained. The situation became so heated that EMI actually paid the Sex Pistols to release them from their contract, preferring to lose money rather than face continued controversy. The song's power came from its complete sincerity. This wasn't theatrical rebellion like Alice Cooper or the Rolling Stones, but genuine anger from working-class British youth who felt abandoned by their government. Johnny Rotten's sneering vocals and the band's primitive but powerful music made Anarchy in the UK feel like a genuine threat to social stability, which in many ways it was. Number 8. Only Women Bleed by Alice Cooper.
He got the power, yeah. She got the beat.
Alice Cooper shocked audiences in 1975 with a song that many initially misunderstood based on its title alone. Only Women Bleed wasn't about menstruation, as many assumed, but about domestic violence, a topic that was rarely addressed in popular music at the time. The song's frank discussion of abusive relationships made many radio programmers uncomfortable. Several stations banned it without even listening to the full lyrics, assuming the title referred to female biology.
Only women bleed. Only women bleed.
Those who did hear the complete song often found its depiction of domestic abuse too disturbing for their audiences. Cooper, known for theatrical horror and shock value, had written something genuinely serious and socially conscious, but his reputation worked against him.
Slaps you once in a while and you live in love and pain.
The controversy revealed the complex attitudes of the 1970s toward both women's issues and rock music's social role. Cooper's decision to address domestic violence was ahead of its time, but his delivery, dramatic and theatrical as always, made some listeners uncomfortable with the serious subject matter. The song eventually found its audience and became one of his most respected compositions.
Only women bleed.
Number 7. Jet Airliner by Steve Miller Band. Steve Miller Band's 1977 hit faced censorship for what might be the most ridiculous reason on this list. Radio programmers objected to the phrase funky shit, considering it inappropriate for broadcast. The solution was simple, but telling. Stations played a version where funky shit became funky kicks, completely changing the meaning but satisfying the censors. The censorship highlighted the arbitrary nature of broadcast standards in the 1970s. While songs about drug use, violence, and rebellion often made it to radio with minimal editing, a single mild profanity was enough to trigger a complete lyrical change. Miller went along with the edit, understanding that radio play was essential for commercial success. Jet Airliner became one of the biggest hits of 1977 despite, or perhaps because of, the censorship controversy. The song's themes of escape and freedom resonated with audiences, and the minor lyrical change didn't diminish its impact. It became a classic rock staple, proving that sometimes compromise could lead to greater success than confrontation. Number 6. I Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats.
Silicon chip inside a head gets switched.
Bob Geldof's 1979 composition was inspired by a real tragedy. A school shooting in San Diego, where the teenage perpetrator's only explanation was that she didn't like Mondays. The song's haunting melody and matter-of-fact lyrics about violence made it deeply unsettling, and many American radio stations refused to play it.
Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why.
The controversy was particularly intense because the song dealt with an actual event, not fictional violence or abstract rebellion. Critics argued that it exploited a real tragedy for commercial gain, while supporters praised Geldof for addressing the growing problem of random violence in modern society. The debate reflected broader concerns about media coverage of violent crimes and their potential to inspire copycat incidents.
The whole day down, 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 shoot it up.
Despite radio bans in several markets, I Don't Like Mondays became an international hit and established the Boomtown Rats as serious social commentators. The song's success proved that audiences were interested in music that addressed real social problems, even when those topics made radio programmers uncomfortable. It became one of the most powerful protest songs of the decade. Number 5. The Pill by Loretta Lynn Country Music. Loretta Lynn proved it with The Pill in 1975. Lynn's celebration of birth control and women's reproductive freedom was revolutionary in country music, a genre that typically avoided such topics. Her frank discussion of how contraception could liberate women from constant pregnancy shocked conservative audiences.
'Cause now I've got the pill.
Many country radio stations banned the song outright, and Lynn faced protests at concerts across the American South. Religious groups condemned her for promoting what they saw as immoral behavior, while women's rights advocates praised her courage in addressing such a taboo topic. The controversy split Lynn's fan base and created one of country music's biggest scandals of the decade. The song's commercial impact was limited by the radio bans, but its cultural significance was enormous. Lynn had broken a major barrier in country music, paving the way for more honest discussions of women's experiences. Her willingness to risk her career for her beliefs established her as one of country music's most fearless artists and an important voice in the women's liberation movement.
'Cause mama's got the pill.
Number 4. Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. While technically released in 1983, Relax was written and first performed in the late 1970s, embodying the decade's growing sexual openness. The song's sexually explicit lyrics and suggestive music video made it one of the most controversial releases of its era. The BBC's ban, announced dramatically during a broadcast, only increased public interest. The controversy centered on the song's graphic sexual imagery and what many saw as its promotion of casual sex. Conservative groups organized boycotts, while gay rights advocates embraced it as an anthem of sexual liberation. The debate reflected the cultural tensions of the late 1970s, as traditional values clashed with changing social attitudes. The BBC ban backfired spectacularly, turning Relax into a phenomenon. Record sales soared, and the song became a symbol of resistance to censorship. The controversy helped establish the idea that banned records could be more valuable than approved ones, a lesson that would influence music marketing for decades to come. Number 3. Kodachrome by Paul Simon.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school.
Paul Simon's seemingly innocent 1973 tribute to photography and nostalgia faced an unusual form of censorship. The BBC banned Kodachrome not for any offensive content, but because it mentioned specific brand names, both Kodachrome film and Nikon cameras, which violated their strict policies against product placement in music. The ban seemed particularly absurd because the song was actually quite wholesome, celebrating the preservation of memories through photography. Simon's gentle melody and reflective lyrics were the antithesis of controversial, but BBC policies made no exceptions for artistic intent. The song could only be played on British radio with the product names edited out or replaced. This type of commercial censorship highlighted a different kind of control over artistic expression. While most banned songs faced moral or political objections, Kodachrome was silenced for purely commercial reasons. The controversy seemed almost comical compared to the serious social issues that usually triggered censorship, but it revealed the complex web of interests that determined what music could be broadcast. Number 2, School's Out by Alice Cooper.
We got no choice. Are you good?
Alice Cooper's 1972 anthem seemed like harmless fun, a celebration of summer vacation that resonated with students everywhere. But some school administrators and parent groups saw something more sinister in the song's gleeful destruction of educational institutions. The combination of Cooper's shock rock image and the song's anti-authority message made some adults genuinely nervous. Several radio stations received complaints from school districts worried that the song encouraged disrespect for education. Some schools banned Cooper merchandise, and a few districts even prohibited students from wearing School's Out t-shirts. The controversy seemed overblown. After all, every generation of students had celebrated the end of the school year. But the reaction revealed deeper anxieties about youth culture and authority in the early 1970s. Cooper's theatrical rebellion, combined with the song's massive popularity among teenagers, made many adults worry about the influence of rock music on young people. The song became a generational dividing line, beloved by students and feared by some of their parents and teachers. Number 1, American Pie by Don McLean.
Long, long time ago, I can still remember.
Don McLean's 8.5-minute epic about the day the music died seemed like an unlikely candidate for controversy, but its length and cryptic lyrics made some radio programmers nervous. While not officially banned, many stations refused to play the full version, creating a form of practical censorship that frustrated both the artist and his fans. The song's references to various rock and roll figures, including veiled criticisms of the music industry's commercialization, made some executives uncomfortable. McLean's allegory about the loss of innocence in American culture struck some as too political or philosophical for mainstream radio. The song's complexity challenged the standard 3-minute pop format.
Now the halftime air was sweet perfume while
Radio stations that did play American Pie were rewarded with massive audience response, proving that listeners were ready for more sophisticated and longer musical compositions. The song's eventual success helped break down barriers about song length and lyrical complexity, opening doors for other ambitious musical statements. It became one of the most analyzed and celebrated songs in popular music history.
singing, this'll be the day that I die.
These 15 controversial songs from the 1970s remind us that music has always been a battleground for cultural values and social change. From the Sex Pistols' direct assault on authority to Loretta Lynn's quiet revolution in country music, these artists pushed boundaries and paid the price with censorship and controversy. What's remarkable is how many of these dangerous songs have become beloved classics, their controversial elements now seeming quaint or even progressive by today's standards. The moral panic surrounding Donna Summer's vocals, or the BBC's obsession with product placement in Paul Simon's lyrics, reveals as much about the fears and anxieties of the 1970s as it does about the music itself. The real winners in these censorship battles were often the artists themselves. Radio bans created publicity that money couldn't buy, driving curious listeners to record stores and underground venues. The controversy proved that rock music still had the power to shock, challenge, and change society, which was exactly what the best rock and roll was supposed to do. These songs survived their controversies to become the soundtrack of a generation. They proved that the most effective way to guarantee a song's lasting impact was often to try to silence it. The 1970s taught us that banned music doesn't disappear. It just becomes more powerful, more meaningful, and ultimately more important to the culture it was meant to threaten. If you enjoyed this journey through rock and roll's most controversial decade, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into music history. Which of these band songs do you think was most unfairly censored? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.